The one feature on this from a wedding photographer's perspective that separates this camera from, say, the R5 that makes me want to buy this camera is... What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today, I am going to be reviewing the Canon R3 for wedding and portrait photographers. Now, this is my first episode of unscripted reviews, and in this video series of equipment reviews, I'm gonna be giving you my thoughts about a camera system without getting too in-depth into tech specs and things like that. If you guys want tech specs, you can go read them on B&H's website because you don't need me to recite those to you. Instead, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be giving you guys my experience about utilizing this camera from a practical standpoint. I'm gonna be talking to you about real world experiences, how I've used it, and I have been using this camera now for the last 3 months, my impressions of it ergonomically, performance-wise, the actual quality of imagery that it puts out, much, much more. But before I do that, let's get into what the Canon R3 is, who it's for, who it's not for. And at the very end of this video, if you stick to the end, I'm gonna tell you guys what the cons are about this camera. And there's not very many. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys right now. The Canon R3 was originally announced somewhere around September of 2021. So yeah, I'm fucking late to the game here, okay? But I can tell you, I am very, very happy that I invested in this camera. And the reason why I did was because my R5 broke, I sent it to CPS, and then I asked them if I could, utilizing their loaner program, borrow the Canon R3 just because, right? And that's how I usually get into trouble, and now I end up owning one because I fell in love with it. So just going into this review and what this camera is and what it is not, this camera is primarily a sports camera, right? It was designed, in my opinion, for the Olympics. And according to Canon, this is actually not their flagship model, even though it costs $6,000. It kind of scares me. How much do you think their actual flagship model is gonna cost, Jen?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even wanna know, but we're probably gonna buy it, right?
Oh my God.
I'm gonna get in trouble before this video is even over. This camera is designed to target sports photographers. Sports photography and wedding photography have a lot of similarities. We have to capture fast moving action. We have to be able to work in low light. We have to be able to capture moments in an instant, right? So all of those things lend itself well for being a very, very effective wedding photography camera. Getting into this specific camera and how it is improved over, say, the 1DX, well, this is a mirrorless version of a 1DX. And I know that the 1DX was the DSLR version of the flagship camera, but in reality right here, right now, as it stands today, this is Canon's flagship camera as far as what is released today. This is the highest level of camera that they have out on the market available to us professionals, and performance-wise, it is no slouch. It actually sticks up to that reputation. Now, going into this, the first thing I want to talk about are ergonomics. Now, holding this camera in your hand, first of all, if you guys know, if you're like a Sony shooter or if you are a Fuji shooter, and you pick up one of these Canon cameras for the first time, it's gonna be hard to go back the other way, in my opinion at least, right? Because I've shot with everything, as many of you guys know. The Canon ergonomics have always been very, very good, but the R3 takes this up a notch over something like the R5 because of the integrated grip. Now, I know what you're saying. You're probably saying, hey, we can just go ahead and add a vertical grip to our R5, voila, we got the exact same thing. Well, not exactly, right? The R3 is actually smaller when you compare it to the R5 with the grip attached to it, and ergonomically, it feels a lot better because there's no gap that goes through the bottom right here, so it just sits in your hand very well. The back side of the camera has really, really nice placement for your hands and your thumbs. All the buttons are laid out in great places when you factor in Canon's control button on the lens, along with all of the other customizable features of this camera and all of the other Canon mirrorless cameras today. You're left with a camera that ergonomically is absolutely incredible. In addition to that, now, Canon got rid of the touch bar that was found on its original mirrorless camera, the EOS R, and they replaced this version with a very small circular sensor. And I apologize, this is an unscripted review. I don't know what the official name of that thing is, but it's a touchpad, and it works really, really well for selecting your focus when you are on the go. There's gonna be a little bit more that we can do as far as selecting focus goes, which I'm gonna get into in a minute. In fact, it's probably my favorite feature about this camera, but I don't wanna get too ahead of myself. Let's talk about the viewfinder and the LCD screen. The viewfinder in this camera is bright, and it is big, and it is very, very reminiscent of using an actual DSLR camera. One of the biggest knocks on viewfinders in mirrorless cameras is that they are electronic, right? They don't look the same as looking through a mirror. Well, that has been true for the most part, and it's gotten better over the years, but this camera, in my opinion, has the best viewfinder that I've ever been able to use. I can look through the viewfinder and I can get a clear picture of what it is I'm photographing. There's absolutely no lag or anything like that. In addition to that, when you compare the LCD screen on the back of the camera with something like, say, an R6 or a Sony camera or a Fuji camera, which I've had both of those as well too, the LCD on the back of the camera is much, much better. And I don't know the exact specs as far as the resolution goes, but I'm willing to bet that it is up there with the R5, probably very similar, if not the exact same LCD on the back, which was already excellent. When we get into the performance of this camera, this is what really sets it apart from the other stuff that's already in Canon's ecosystem, like the Canon R5, which, by the way, you're gonna hear me comparing for the rest of this entire video, because the Canon R5 is one of the most perfect portrait and wedding cameras that is out there. In fact, if you look at my previous video review on the R5, I gave it high praise as one of the best wedding cameras that was ever made. As far as performance goes here, if there was one feature, aside from the ergonomics, that separates this camera from, say, the R5, aside from things like the autofocus performance, when you get really into it, the R5 is good enough, right? But the one feature on this from a wedding photographer's perspective that makes me want to buy this camera is the eye autofocus. Now, what is eye autofocus? If you look up the term eye autofocus, you're gonna hear a million things, right? Going back to more modern times, eye autofocus is something that almost every mirrorless camera has had since 2017, where it detects the eye on your subject, but that's not what I'm talking about right here. What I'm talking about right here is when you put your eye through the viewfinder, the autofocus point highlights whatever your eye is looking at. Now imagine this, if you're a wedding photographer right now and you are capturing a bride on the dance floor, and then in the background, maybe her grandma is doing the wobble, you want to be able to quickly change to that particular focus point. In the past, you had to, do some of this crazy finger magic to be able to get the autofocus point there, or focus and recompose, which, is not a very good strategy either. Well, now you can literally just look at grandma doing the wobble on the dance floor, and your camera's autofocus system will highlight that. All you have to do now is push the shutter halfway down, it will lock focus, and then you are good to go. You want to get back to the bride, you look at the bride, lock focus, you are good to go. It keeps me more aware of what's going on in the frame. It allows me to capture more things quickly, and it allows me to get more moments that, in my opinion, I wouldn't have been able to get before, especially if I'm having to use my finger to be able to find the right focus point on whatever it is that I'm looking at. So I'm a really big fan of this. I know that some reviewers on YouTube have been critical of the eye autofocus, but in my opinion, or in my experience, should I say, not the case at all. As long as you're calibrated correctly, and calibrating it correctly requires you to go through a couple of different steps. You have to do it vertical, horizontal. They recommend you do it in low light and in sunlight and things like that. But in my experience from doing this, it has been spot on every single time. So that is the one feature I think that would cause me to invest more in this camera as opposed to something like an R5. But we'll get into my opinion on that in just a little bit. For shooting, okay, this camera can do 30 frames per second electronic. It can do 12 or 13 frames per second with the mechanical shutter. But here's the kicker right now. You can actually utilize flash with the electronic shutter. So in reality, there's very few reasons why you would ever need to utilize the mechanical shutter on this camera. You can get away with utilizing the electronic shutter, and you can utilize flash. The one caveat is that your sync speed is a little bit reduced, but in most cases, it's not that big of a deal. So I absolutely love the fact that you can utilize the electronic shutter. For most things, it is completely silent if you want it to be. I have it set so that the back of the camera right here, rather than switching the switch that goes into movie mode, when I hit that switch, the camera goes completely silent and it goes into electronic shutter mode. And I'm still able to use flash, so that doesn't become a problem. So that is one of the things that I absolutely love about this camera. Now, let's be honest, I'm a wedding photographer. You're probably a wedding or a portrait photographer, but you're not gonna necessarily use the 30 frames per second. There's very few instances where you would use the 30 frames per second, unless you're a sports photographer and you're trying to capture somebody like coming in on a fast break and doing a slam dunk or something like that. But I don't think as a wedding photographer, you're gonna do that. 20 frames per second is more than enough, and you can actually adjust what the high speed mode does, which is kind of cool, and how fast that high speed mode shoots. So that is something that's customizable here in the settings of the camera as well. Let's talk about the sensor for a second, okay? In my experience in using this, I feel like this camera has a little bit more dynamic range than the Canon R5, and that may be because it is half the resolution of the Canon R5. The dynamic range is excellent. Like, it's on par with the Sony sensors that I used back in the day, and mind you, I haven't used a modern A7R5 or an A9 II or an A1 or any of that stuff. But this is more than good enough. I use off-camera flash. I don't need massive amounts of dynamic range. I think that it's fine, at least for what I use it for. And then you got the Canon colors that, you know, that work really well for my style of photography as well too. So it's great. Battery life on this is outstanding. It is absolutely fantastic. I can get through an entire wedding day, and I shoot long weddings, 10, 12, 14 hours sometimes. I've done quite a few weddings with it, and I haven't had to change the battery even one time. I've got extra batteries because I used to have a 1DX, and they still work, by the way. They never lost their performance capability, which says a lot about the battery because I haven't used the 1DX for a couple of years. But I pop those in right there, and they go all day. So sometimes when I'm shooting portraits in the studio, I can get to 3, 4, 5 days without having to change the battery on the camera, which is fantastic if you're a wedding photographer. I know those of you who are watching this, you are probably wishing that your R5 could do that, because I definitely wish that my R5 could do it as well. Low light performance is outstanding on this camera too. I do not worry about what my ISO is. Now, it's not often that I have to get my ISO up over 6400, but I've shot images, plenty of images at 10, 12,000 ISO, and they are completely usable. Adobe just released its Auto AI denoise solution for Lightroom. So when you couple those two things together, I don't even think it's something that we even have to worry about anymore, which is crazy how fast camera technology is advancing. And we'll get more into that in a second. The camera shoots obviously RAW and JPEG, so you can do either one that you want. I have found that full RAW, the image sizes are really, really good. When we talk about comparing this to something like a Canon R5 with the 45 megapixel sensor, being half the resolution for my workflow personally for weddings works really well. So if you're using an R5 and an R6, you probably are able to compare the size of the two different types of files. And I'm imagining if you're a wedding photographer, you're dealing with massive amounts of files. It doesn't matter how fast your computer is, the smaller file size is usually more than enough. It's very rare where I feel like I need to go get my R5 to do a specific type of portrait. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, Jen shoots on the R5. I haven't personally used my R5 for quite a while. So I'm gonna talk briefly about the video capabilities of this camera. Now, there's not a lot to say, right? It does very good video. I'm not a videographer, by the way, so if you came here looking for video specs, go find another YouTuber who covers this in depth. I have used this for some video, but more in a hybrid function where I'm kind of like switching between photo and video, getting behind the scenes content, which for those of you who are not videographers and you're not here looking for, you know, its video specs, a couple things I will tell you, by the way, I've never had any issues with overheating, never had any issues with 4K 60. What I typically use this for on the video front is turning the camera vertical and capturing some Instagram reel footage or something like that when I'm in the middle of shooting by myself and I don't have anybody doing behind the scenes, because it's all about short form video now. I know you photographers, how much you guys love that. But let's talk real quick about how this compares with the R5 for something like wedding and portrait photography, because obviously if you're a wedding and portrait photographer, you're going to compare the two. I think it's overkill. I'm not gonna lie, okay? I'm gonna tell you right now, at the price point at $6,000 for this camera compared to $3,899 for the R5, this is definitely overkill. It's way more than you need. But if you have the budget to spare, and you care about capturing like fast action moments, maybe you're a heavily photojournalistic focused photographer on the wedding space, this camera will probably be worth the extra money. For the vast majority of you out there, I would say stick with the R5 if you're a wedding and portrait photographer, but if you have the extra money to spend, you're not gonna buy this camera and be pissed off that you did. Let's just be honest, okay? It's an amazing freaking camera. You're going to love it. I absolutely love it, and everybody I know who has used it absolutely loves it as well too. So getting in between the two though, file quality, again, the R5 is going to win on the resolution front. I know many of you are looking at like what an R1 could possibly look like. Maybe people are complaining about this not being high enough resolution, but let's be honest, you got 30 frames per second, you've got an electronic shutter, you've got a fantastic battery life, you got excellent low light performance, and now you guys want, you know, high resolution in this too, and that's never gonna happen. That's a fucking unicorn, so stop believing in unicorns. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys like the first unscripted review that I have here. What would you guys like for me to review next? If you haven't yet, check out my video on the Canon R5 and also the Canon 28-70 right here on the description, one of these sides right here, and we will catch you on the next one.